Weisafie Hale. Today, something a little bit different, a little bit maybe more fun. Well, every Old English reading is fun, but this one is definitely different. Here we have an Old English account of the Greco-Persian Wars. So this is a translation of a Latin history written by a priest named Orosius, and he was writing around the turn of the 4th century, so around the year 400 AD. He was attempting to demonstrate through history that Christians were not the reason why the Roman Empire was falling, and that the pre-Christian time wasn't this just like happy paradise. It was also fraught with disaster and chaos and war and bloodshed. And so, in attempting to demonstrate this, he wrote a history book, which is pretty valuable to us. It was translated into Old English by King Alfred the Great, or someone in his court. We don't really know. Could have been either. And here we have it today, that Old English translation. It's really, really interesting because the translator, whether it be King Alfred or not, I'm not really sure. We don't know, that is. It adds a lot to the Latin text. The Latin text is much shorter. It's a little bit more accurate. The Old English translator tends to elaborate on things, add in details, change things here and there to kind of more make a more presentable narrative in his own opinion. So yeah, we'll see all of that in a bit. I'm going to read this in Old English. I'll have kind of modern English interlinear translations as we're going along. If you'd like to follow along, I'll have the link in the comments. And then if you ever need to look up a word here or there, I'll have the link to Wiktionary as well. I'd recommend doing it there. You can also use Bosworth-Toller if you're a fan of Bosworth-Toller. A lot of the proper names are not going to be in Wiktionary, but I will try to mention all of them if they are relevant, or if we know what they are, which sometimes we don't. Okay. After tham the Roma burg timbred was, twa hunde wintre on feortine, that de combis feng to persa riche, Cyrus is sunu, se mid thon the he Egypte overwon, ye did it that nan hadden kinning ari don ne dorste, that was that he heora god yieldem allum with soak, and he after tham mid alle to warp. Okay. After tham the Roma burg timbred was, twa hunde wintre on feortine, that is 214 years after the founding of Rome. This is kind of weird. They have the 4 before the 10 here, but that does happen in medieval texts sometimes. Combus feng to Persa riche, which is a way of saying in Old English, he became the king of Persia. Cyrus sunu. I should say maybe Cyrus or Cyrus sunu, but that's Cyrus, Cyrus the Great. Say mid thon te he Egypte overwon, he, when he had conquered Egypt, ye did it that non hadden kinning er do ne dorste. He did what no heathen king, that is before, dared to do. That was that he heora god yieldem allum with soak. He kind of forsook all of their heathen idols, and he after them mid alle to warp, and then he threw them all down. After him rixode Darius, se awende alle Assyriae et Assyriae and Chaldai eft to Perseum. They are from him gebogene waren. So after him rixode Darius, after him ruled Darius, that is the Emperor Darius. Se awende alle Assyriae and Chaldai eft to Perseum. So Assyria and I think this is called in modern English, I think this is Chaldee, are these kind of two regions that he awende eft to Perseum. He kind of brought them back. He turned them back. That is, he reconquered them. They are from him gebogene waren, that had before that had rebelled from him. After them, he won on Scythia, on Scythia, I guess I should say, yeah, Scythia. Either ye for Cyrus slayeth as Kuningus, his Maias, ye ac for tham the him mon thar weavis for weirde. So after tham he won on Scythia, that is he fought against the Scythians. Either ye for Cyrus slayeth as Kuningus, so either for, that is either here in Old English really means more like both for the killing of Cyrus the king, who was his Mai, his kinsman. Ye ac also for And then here we have for tham the him mon thar weavis for wienre, which is like they refused a wife to him. So, he had been arranged he had requested or wanted to marry some woman in Scythia, and it was denied to him. His heres was 700,000 tha he on Scythia for. So his army, and here it's in the genitive because it's talking about the size. So his heres, we have like maybe rim, like the number. His heres was 700,000, 700,000. Tha he on Scythia for, when he set out for Scythia. Whether tha Scythia noldon hina jesechan to folkjefeuchte, ac thonne hi yind that land to farne waren, hi thonne hi folkmalum slogen. So, whether tha Scythia noldon hina jesechan to folkjefeuchte, they did, the Scythians, I'm not really sure if it's Scythians or Scythians. I think it's in modern English, it's Scythians. The Scythians, I'll say, didn't want to sechan to folkjefeuchte. They didn't want to literally to seek him for a fight. That is, they would not meet him in battle. Akthone he yond. Here it's spelled yind. It's in common West Saxon. That's yond. Yond that land to farne waren. That is, the Persians kind of were traveling around the land of Scythia. He thonne he folkmalum slogen. Then they killed them in folkmalum, in kind of like small groups of people. So we can picture here the Persian army has split up to try and, capture ground. And the Scythians, who are all horseback riders, very mobile, would surround them in pockets and kill them in like kind of small groups. So as to avoid fighting, 600, 700,000 Persians all at once. Tha waren tha Perse mid tham swede exode, and ac ondraden that mon tha brige for wirden wode, the ad tham jemare was, that he sithan nisten who he thon on common, on cumen. So tha waren tha Perse mid tham swede je exode, that is, then the Persians were midtham with that. Swede je exode, that is very afraid. And ac ondraden, that man tha brige for wirchan wode, they at tham jemare was. So they ondraden, they were afraid that man tha brige for wirchan wode, that someone was going to destroy the bridge. They at tham jemare was, that was at the border. That he sithan niste who he thon on cumen, that they would thereafter, Sithan, not know where they had come from. So the fear is that the Scythians were going to destroy the bridge so that they wouldn't be able to find their way kind of back to Persia. He thas a kuning, after tham the his folk swede for slain was, therefore late 180,000 behaft on him, that he thar thayit lenge winan sholden, and he self thon on you what, on tha lasan asiam, and he for herjende, for hergode. So then the king, after the time that his folk swede for slain was, after his people had been, kind of strongly killed, therefore late 180,000 behaft on him. Then he let 80,000 behind him, that he thayit lenge winan shoulder, that they should then, kind of long continue to fight. So he's leaving a contingent of 80,000 men in Scythia to continue fighting. On himself thon on Yawat on the Lasan Asiam, and then he went into Asia Minor. On he for Hergode, and kind of laid it to waste, he raided it. On Sithan on Macedoniam, and on Iunas Kreke Leode. Iunas Kreka Leode. So then in Macedonia, and then in the Ionians, Kreka Leode, that is the land of the Greeks. Kreka on Krekas is the Old English word, at least in this text, for Greeks. On tha he butu over Hergode, and for Sithan fyr an Krekas, and he win up a hof with Athenienses, for tham he Macedoniam on fultumi waren. So then he butu overhergode, that is, he destroyed both of them, the Ionians and the Macedonians. On Forsithan fyr an Krakas. And then, you know, he started a war against the Greeks on Yuwin Upahof with Athenienses, and kind of Yuwin Upahof is a kind of poetic way of saying he started like a struggle. He kind of Upahof, he held up like Yuwin, which is like a battle with Athenienses, the Athenians. For tham he Macedoniam on Fultme, because they had been helping the Macedonians. Sona swa Atheniense wiston that Darius he midjefeuchte sechan wolde, he akurun en leven thusand monna. Und him onjan foran, und thona kuning at thare dune meton themon hat morotonie. Okay, so Sona swa Atheniense wiston that Darius he midjefeuchte sechan wolde. So as soon as the Athenians realized that Darius was going to try to find a battle with them, he akurun and levan thusand monna. They chose 11,000 men on Timonyan foron and set out against him. On Thonakuning at thare dune meton themon had morotonie, and they met the king at that mountain that is called Marathon. Heuralateu was haten Theseus. That is, their leader was named Theseus. And now this is just kind of one of the odder aspects of this translation. We have the Latin next to us here, and the Latin says pretty obviously, militiades on miltiades ei tunc bello praefut. That is, Miltiades, I guess how you would say that in modern English, was their lord. Was the kind of not the lord, but like the general of the battle. So the Latin text has miltiades, and then the translator says, you know, well, miltiades, that's great, but it would be a lot cooler if it was Theseus that was the leader of the Athenians. And so I guess that's just what they did. Heuralateu was haten Theseus. Their leader was. They're strictly like a general, was named Theseus. Se was mit his dadum snellra thonne he minus havde. Se jeworchte michelne dom on tham jefeuchte. So he was quicker with his deeds than he was kind of strong. That is, his army wasn't as big as he was fast. Tha war 200,000 Perseof slain, on tha odre jeflimde. So 200,000 Persians were killed, and the rest were put to flight. Tha he eft havde fyr die garrod on Perseum, on that je rekantochte, tha je forhe. So Darius, tha he eft havde fyr die garrod, then when he had again gathered his army on Perseum in Persia, on that rekantochte, and he wanted to avenge that, tha je forhe, then he died. He set out from life. After him fang his sunu to perse Xerxes. That he win that his father astalde he dicholice for tham 5 jaar shipa worchte on fultum gaderode. So after him, fang his sunu to perse. Again, we have this idiom of fang to riche, that is literally kind of like grabbed at power, but it just kind of means like he assumed power. Xerxes. And that he win that his father astalde, that war that his father started, he digolice for tham 5 jaar shipa worchte. He kind of sneakily, sort of like hiddenly, for 5 years made ships and gathered help on fultum gaderode. Tha was meet him on Recha of Lacedaemania, Greco-Persian, se was haten Damarath. So Recha is an exile, or kind of make like a mercenary, and this guy is of maybe in Old English this should be like Lacedaemania. I'll say Lacedaemonia in modern English, but not really sure how they would have pronounced that in Old English, that is. Greco-Persian, say was haten Damarath. He was named Damarath. Say that faken to his kithe je bodade, and hit on anum brede au rat, and sithan mit wax beworkte. So he, that faken, that kind of secret, to his kithe je bodade. So he secretly like let his kithe, his kin, know what was going on here. He wrote it on a tablet and made it with wax. Xerxes, tha hij aan Krakos voor, had his eigenes focus achter 100.000, und hij had of overmvelden abeden 400.000. Und hij had schipper thara miklena dulmuna an 1.200 und thara schipper waren 3,000, I think. I think thousand's actually neuter. So 3,000 they hura mete baren. Und alles his heres was swelch ungemeet, dat man ade kwedan machte, dat het wonder ware, waar he landes havden, dat he mechten an Jewikian, othe wateres, on Jewikian, othe wateres, that he mechten him thirst of a drinkan. Okay, that was a lot. We'll go through it. So, Xerxes, tha he an Krakos for, so when he kind of made for the Greeks, had his eigenes focus, 800.000. So he had 800,000 of his own folk. His eigenes focus. Und hij had of overem velden abeden 400.000. So 400,000 of other peoples, of overem velden. Und hij had Sheba, thara Mikel na Dulmuna. So the Dolmens, I think these are called. They're kind of like Greek ship. He has 1,200 of these, 1,200 of those. On Tharashipa waren 3,000 on 3,000 they hier mete baren. And then so 3,000 ships to carry all their food. Und alles his heres was swelch ungemet. His army was so kind of uncountable that man adequate michte, that it wonder ware where he landes havden, that he michten on. So this on, a lot of these ons that we're going to see are really on, but the aw sound represented in IPA with the kind of like this backward C is kind of, to the Old English at least, indistinguishable in between the A and the O letter. So they use A and O in kind of indistinguishably at times to represent that sound, but it's on. That's only the short version. So the word for one, for example, in Old English is on. That never gets confused. And then, there are words like onatone, which are the long O. Those are always spelled with O, but it's the short A, short O before a nasal is the aw sound. Anyway. So people are saying here, like it's saying like the army is so big that it would be okay to wonder where he landes havden that he michten on Jewikian. So where is the land with which you are going to feed these people? Of the wateres that he michten him thirst over drinken, or the water that they're going to drink. Swathach so unmetliche menigo fast focus was tha idre to overwinnane thon heu us si nu to yorimane o theto livane. So here he kind of spoils it and says Swathach, even though So unimetliche menichu, and this is a Mercianism, but this is just many, the many. In West Saxon, normal West Saxon, this would be monigu. And the kind of ridiculously large force was thought idre to overwinnane was easier to defeat than heu us si nu to yerimane othe to yelivane, than it would be easy for us now to count or to believe. So it's a sort of difficult for it saying here, but he's saying that it was easier to defeat than it would be for us nowadays to believe it or to count it. To yurimane, to count it, othe to yulivane, to believe it. All right, here we get our guy. Leoniþa, Lacedaemonia König, Greco-Persian. It's kind of difficult to tell. We can't really tell whether or not this is in the dative or not. I'm going to say it is. Greco-Persian have de 4,000 monna, tha he onjan xerxes for on anum narwan lonfastenne, und him thar medieveog de withstod. Leoniþa, Lacedaemonia König, Greco-Persian have de 4,000 monna, so he had 4,000 men, tha he onjan xerxes, then he again against Xerxes, for he set forth on anum narwan lonfastenne, on one kind of narrow passage, on him thar medieveog de withstod, and then he withstood the battle there. Xerxes that other folk swa swede forsach, that he askode what sholde at swa lutlum werde mare fultum buton ta ane, the him thar abogen was on tham on jeveogde, that he was on Merotonia thar dune. Xerxes that other folk swa swede forsach, so Xerxes hated the other people, that is the Greeks, so much, that he askode what sholde at swa lutlum werde mare fultum, that is, what kind of more help, mare fultum, do I need, what sholde, each, at swa lutlum werde, with such a small force. So, essentially he's saying, what do I need in terms of this great army to defeat such a small force? Buton tha ane the him thar abogen was on tham van jeveogde, that te was on Merotonia thar redune. So he's kind of saying, buton tha ane, except for that, the him abogen was on tham van jeveogde, that kind of was jebogen, abogen means kind of like angry or kind of like stirred. I'm going to take it here to mean rebelled. Was on tham an jeveogde, the first, the earlier battle, that was on Merotonia thar redune, on Marathon, the mountain. Akisete tha men on ane truman, themon hira mayas on tham londe sloch, on wiste that he wodon jern foran beon thar rake, thon odre men, und he swa waron oth he thar mast alle of slayane wurdel. So he akisete tha men on ane truman. So he put the men into one kind of force, one army. Themon hiremayas on tham londe sloch. Anyone who had their mayas, their kinsmen, on tham londe sloch. Anyone who had their kinsmen killed in Greece. So he's taking everyone from his army that's had a kind of family member been killed by the Greeks. On he wiste that he wodon jerforan beon thare rake thon other men. So he knew that they would be more kind of eager to fight for the revenge than other men were. Und he swa waren oth he thar mast alle of slayne worden. And so that had they were there, they were in that kind of army until they were almost all killed. Mast alle of slayne worden. So he puts all these men into this army, saying like, well, you guys have had family killed by the Greeks. Why don't you go kill these Spartans? And they all get killed. Xerxes swede himtha of thinkendum that his folk swaje forslagen was, he self tha therto for mit allum tha meine they he therto je laran machte, on ther feugten de waren 3 dagas, o thar perse was unjemetlich wal is slain. Xerxes swede himtha of thinkendum that his folk swa forslagen was. So he was then really angry. He was of thinkendum. Me of thinche is like, I'm sorry. Of thinchan is like to kind of be upset about something. And he's very upset that his folk swa forslagen was, that his people had been killed in this battle. He self tha therto for, he then himself went forth, mit allum tha meine the he therto je lad on machte, that is the kind of 2 million or so people that we had heard about described earlier. On thar feugten de waren 3 dagas, then he was fighting there 3 days. O thar perse was unjemetlich wal je slain, until of the Persians, thar persea, was unjemetlich wal je slain, an uncountable slaughter of them, an uncountable kind of, wal is like a disaster, like a slaughter, were killed. He heitha that faste lond utan imfaran. So he commanded to go out and around Thermopylae, that he monscholde an ma halve on feugtan thonne on ane. So he wanted to surround Thermopylae and attack from both sides. That he monscholde on ma halve on feugtan. So on more halves, literally, fight thonne on ane instead of just one half. So they wanted to fight on 2 halves. He thonon afor on his vierde jelade on an oder fastre land. So he led the army. He thonon afor, he then set out on his vierde jelade, and he led his army on an oder fastre land, into another fast land. That is kind of, we skipped the sentence, sorry. Alright, we skipped the sentence. Leoniþa thought je askode that hinamon swa Bethridian wode. So Leonidas then discovered that he was about to be kind of destroyed in this way. Bethridian is destroyed. Mon swa Bethridian wode. Someone wanted, that is Xerxes, wanted to kind of destroy him. Okay, I hope this now makes more sense. He thonon afor, he then set out on his vierde lade on an other fastre land, and he led his army to another kind of defendable land. On thar je wonerdon oth nicht, and he there stayed there until night. On him from afaran heit, alle tha burgware, the he of otherum lande, him to fultime abeden havde, that he him jesunde burgen, for tham he ne ude, that anima folke for his thingum for wurde thon he self met his agen rethelde. Okay. He from afar on hate, so he commanded away from him, alla tha burgware, the him of otherum lande, him to fultime abeden havde. All of the people, burgware is literally like citizen, like dwellers of a city. Thehe of otherum lande, that he of other lands, or here is a singular, from another land, him to fultime abeden havde, for his help had kind of asked to come. So he has presumably other Greeks in this army, he's sending them off. That he him jesunde burgen, that they kind of leave in one piece. For tham hene ude, that anima folka for his thingum for wurde thonne he self mit his agen rethelde. Because he refused, he did not allow hene ude, that anima folka, that any more people for his thingum, for his kind of reasons, for wurde were killed, thonne he self mit his agen rethelde, than he himself with his own people. Ac he thus was sprekende on jomriende, then he was kind of speaking, and Yomrian is to kind of like lamenting. So Yomriende is like lamenting. Nu we untweuren liedje witan that we ure agen li for latan shulon, for tham unjemetlikan fellenshipe, they ure echtende on sindo. Now we untweuren liedje, we undoubtedly, witan, no. Here, this is witon. This, again, we have an unstressed OA confusion. So this really is witon, the third person plural, not third person, the plural preterite ending. Witon, they knew, or we know. We unpeurenliche witon, that we ure agenli for latan shulon, that we must our own life for latan lose. For tham unjemetlikan fellenshipe, for the kind of unmeasurable enmity, they ure echtende on sindon, that our kind of troublers, our kind of terrorizers, the Persians, are on sindon. Uton thachwadere a kraftan hu we heura an thise nicht mijn mask beswikan, und u selvum betst word on longsumast at urm ende jewurjan. So, uton thachwadere, let us, however, a kraftan hu we heura an thise nicht mijn mask beswikan. So let us then a kraftan, let us come up with hu we heura an thise nicht mijn mask beswikan. How we heura an, kind of like them, thise nicht, tonight, mijn, might, mask beswikan, most kind of kill. So literally, not literally, but like, you know, the translation of the sentence is, let us think of how we can kill the most of them tonight. Uton thachwadere a kraftan, hu we heura an thise nicht mijn mask beswikan. Und u selvum betst word on longsumast at urm ende jewurjan. Word here doesn't mean word, it means kind of like reputation or like legacy. Und u selvum, and for ourselves, betst word on longsumast, the kind of best reputation and the most long-lasting, at urm ende jewurjan, at our end, make. So they want to, they want to go out with a bang here, essentially. Hu michel tatis to sajane, that Leoniþa mid 600 monna, that is 600 men, 600.000 swa jebismrade, summe of sloch, summe je vliende. Hu michel that is to sajane. That is, it's kind of like all that to say that Leoniþa, that Leonidas, again with 600 men, 600.000 swa bismrade, summe of sloch, summe je vliende. So 600,000 men. Bismrade is like he kind of mocked them. Of sloch, killed them. Je vliende, put them to flight. Xerxes was tha at twam chirum on tham londe swa yeshend mit his ormatum mania. So Xerxes then there was for Xerxes great shame, yeshend, at twam chirum on tham londe, twice, 2 times in that land. Mid his ormatum mania, with his like great multitude. He thayit thridan side was wilniende mid shipvierde that he thasi winnes mich de mare fremman, und him Ionas, creka leode, on fultum yispon. So, he thayit thridan side, a third time, was wilniende was desiring, mid shipvierde, that he thasi winnes mich de mare fremman. So he wanted, with that, with thasi winnes, that kind of, that war, might mare fremman, might do more. Und him Ionas, creka leode, and then the Ionians, the Greek people, on fultum yispon, kind of coerce them to help. Thach hi overhira willan him toje chirdan. Thach hi overhira willan him toje chirdan. Und hi him jeheton, that he that je feucht erst mit himself mithorch teun wolden, thach hi him eft faken je lasten, tha hi on tham safeucht in the waren. Okay. So he kind of presses the Ionians into support. Thach, though, he over here rawillan him to yichirdan. So against their own will, over here rawillan, they came to him, him to yichirdan. And he him yeheton, and they promised him that he that je feucht arrest meet himself thorch teon wolde. So they promised him that they would that battle that je feucht first arrest meet himself thorch teon wolden, that they would kind of do it themselves. Thorch teon is to like carry it through. Thach he him eft fak in yelasten. They kind of did a lie to him. Thought he on tham sa feucht in the water when they were on the sea. So they did not do this. They were they kind of turned against him. Themistocles hate Atheniense ladteo. Themistocles was the kind of general of the Athenians. He waren kumen Leonidan to fultime, thach he at tham aran feuchte him nemichten to kuman. So he was coming to help Leonidas, kumen Leonidan to fultime, for help. Thach he at tham aran feuchte him nemichten to kuman. On the first fight, that is Thermopylae, he was not able to come help him. So here it's kind of unclear. Leonidas doesn't seem to have died at Thermopylae. He seems to have moved on to a different location and to have continued fighting. And we'll find that he actually doesn't die at all in this chapter. Pretty interesting. Say Themistocles, Yemunirode Ionas, thare aldan fachte, the exercis him to geworkt hadde, hoe he mid for herjunge on mid Maya slichtum on his wild nide. Okay, says Themistocles, Yemunirode, he reminded Ionas, the Ionians, that aldan fachte, the exercis him to geworkt hadde, the kind of old strife that Xerxes had kind of done to them. Hoe he mid for herjunge on mid Maya slichtum on his wild nide. Who he them with raiding and the deaths of their kins Maya slichtum on his wild nide. Had kind of nide. This had happened on his Wild, in his power. He bad he ac that he jemunden thara aldena treua on thas unarrimedly can friendshipes that he either have done ye to Atheniensum ye to Lacedaemonium on aldagum. So he reminded them. He bade literally. He bade he ac. He bade them also that he jemunden, that they remembered, thar aldena treua, the old kind of loyalty, on thas unarrimedly can friendshipes, and the uncountable friendship he either have done ye to Atheniensum, that they both had to the Athenians, ye to Lacedaemonium, and to the Spartans. On aldagum, before, in the old days. And he bidden de was that he mid summe sarurenche from exerce tham kinninge summe huile awende. And they were kind of praying that they would get some revenge from Xerxes, the king, tham kinninge, summe huile awende. That it would kind of turn after a while. That is, summe huile means like sometime. That he on Lacedaemonie mosten with persum thasi winnes sumne ende uirchan. That they could kind of make some end, sumne ende uirchan thasi winnes, to the war. He him thare bene yetichleron. The yetichion is like to grant. So a bene is a prayer. And here, he him thare bene yetichion. They granted him that request. That is, the Ionians turned against the Persians. Tha perse thati sawon, that he tha from buhan, that he bets die triwidon, that him schulde sie je feuchtan, he selve ak fleunde waren, and hier thar war felle of slien, and a drunken on je fangen. Tha So when the Persians saw that he tha from Buran, that he best triudon, that the people had turned from them who they best trusted. Now, why the Persians had best trusted the Ionians, I wouldn't be able to tell you. That him shoulde sie gevechten, that they would fight for them. He selve act fleonde waren. They themselves were fleeing. Und hierethar werth fellow of slain, many were killed. Und drunken, and this does not mean drunk, this means drowned. On gevangen and captured. Xerxes Thane was haten Marthonius. Say hine was jorne lærende, that he ma hamward for thonne he thar lenge bide. Því las anihu unjethwarnes on his agnum riche a haven wurde. Und quath that hit Jerusalem were, that he that win him betakte, mid tham fultime, the thar to lave thayit was lenge to winane. On side that hit tham kunninge lasse edwit were, yif tham folke boot on him thayit mispewe, swa him dide. Okay, so the king's thane, Xerxes' thane, was named Marthonius. Say he was jerne lærende, he was eagerly advising him, that he ma hamward for, that he, made for home, basically. Thonne he thar lenge bide. Ma thonne here, so he's advising him that it's a better idea, is what ma is essentially meaning here, that he goes home, that he ma hamward for, thonne he thar lenge bide, then he stay there any longer. Lenge is like longer. Si las anihu unjethwarnes on his agrum riche haben wurde. Lest, si las, any unjethwarnes, any kind of trouble on his agrum riche in his own kingdom of Persia, haben wurde, were had. So saying like, you should probably go now, unless you start to face domestic disputes. On quath that hit Jerusalemlikre were, it would be more fitting, more fitting, that he thati win him betakte, mid tham fultime, they thar to lave tha yitwas, lenge to win nane. So, it is more fitting that he thati win him betakte, mid tham fultime. So, you should continue this war with the kind of the help, that is the army, they thar to lave tha yitwas, that is still here. Lenge to winane, to continue fighting, basically, longer to fight. On side that hit tham kunninge lasse edwit were if tham folke boot on him tha yit mispewe. He said to him that it would be less of a kind of embarrassment, edwit, less of a kind of shame for the king, tham kunninge, yif tham folke boot on him tha yit mispewe, if the people without him were to fail. Mispewe here is like made a mess of things, essentially. So he's saying to him, you should go, because if the army here fails and you're not here, it's a lot less bad, it's a lot less embarrassing than if it fails while you are here. So Swahim did it as we were failing before. So Kinning thought Xerxes, Swede je livet liche, his thane hirde. He then, very eagerly accepted his thane's advice. Und mid summum dale his fultime thonon afor. And with a little bit of his army then went forth. Hamwar tothar e kom. When he was coming homewards to the river. They he westward heit tha overmatan brygge. Mid stane over Wirchan. He see to takne, the he on tham see the thorchteon thorchte. So he's coming home to the river, unclear which river, but he had built a bridge here. He heit tha overmatan brygge mid stane over Wirchan. He commanded a ridiculously large bridge to be built over with stone. He see to takne. As a sign of his victory, that he thought that he was going to kind of pull through or carry through on that journey, on tham sida. Tha was so to than flede, that he ne michte to thare bridge kuman. Then the river was so flooded, to than flede, that he was not able to come to the bridge. He ne michte to thare bridge kuman. Tha was tham kinninge swede onge on his mode, that na thar he ne meet his fultemenas, ne that he over tha kuman ne michte. So then the king, literally the construction here is, in the king was a great angst. Tham kinninge swede onge. Was, that is, onge is like anxiety. On his mode, in his mind, that nathar ne he meet his fultemenas, so he was not there with his army, ne that he overtha kuman ne michte, nor was he able to go over the bridge. So he's stuck here, an emperor, without an army, kind of in the middle of nowhere. So he begins to become afraid. To agan tham he him was swede ondradende, that him his fiend waren after fulgende. So to agan tham, in addition to that, he him was swede ondradende, he was very afraid, that his fiend waren after fulgende, that his enemies were following him. Him tha to kom an fischere, on un ade hine ane overbrochte. So then he comes to a fisher, and the fisher unade uneasily brings him over the river. Who God thought mast on over mate to, on that maste onion on swa handliche over met to ye neitherode, that say the him ari thuchte, that him nan sa with habban ne michte, that he hine mit shipum on mit his fultme a fyllan ne michte, that he eftwas bidende honest lutless troges at anum arman men, that he michte his fair generian. Okay, here we get a little religious excursus. Who God thought mast on over met to, how God, it's kind of an exclamation. Oh goodness, God has now thought mast on over met to, the greatest pride over met to. On that maste onion, and the greatest beginning, on swahanliche over met to ye neitherode, in such a kind of overinflated pride brought down ye neitherode. That he saith him ariuthuchte, that him nan sa with haban ne michte, he who thought that no sea could withhold him, that he hine mid shipum on mid his fultme a fyllan ne michte, that he it would kind of overcome with his army and with his ships, mid his shipum on mid his fultme. That he eftwas bidende honest lutless troges, that he was again now praying for one little boat at anum arman men, at one poor man, that he michte his fair generian, that he could save his life. So God has so humbled this over prideful emperor Xerxes, who he thought that no group of people, not even the sea could withstand him. Now he is kind of begging for a little rowboat from a fisher, so he could save his life. Morthonius, Xerxes Thane, for Leitha shipa thehi on farende waren, on forto andre buri on Boetium, Crekalonde, on he abrak. So Morthonius, the kind of servant of Xerxes Thane, for Leitha shipa thehi on farende waren, he left the ships that they had gotten there on forto andre buri on Boetium, and went to to a town, Buri, in Boeotia, in Crekalonde, in the land of the Greeks, on he abrak, and he conquered it. Himon that after tham hradliche forjald, then it was kind of quickly forjald, that is avenged. Tha he mon flimde on swede forsloch, and they were put to flight and kind of slaughtered. Swede forsloch. Thach the Athenians je sesie on seu ravung, thas persishan feos tomaron shonde wurde, for thon sithan he welefran waron he ac bladran wurden. So, though the victory, Sesia, on Seoravung and the kind of the plunder was to the Athenians tomaron shonde. It kind of became a greater shame to them. Thas perisishan feos of the Persian kind of money, wealth, things. For thon, sithan he welekran waren, as soon as they became more wealthy, he ac bladran wurden. They also became kind of slack, lazy, declined in like their morals. After tham Xerxes werth his agen theode swede unwerth, on hine his agen aldermon Artabatus besirde on Osloch. So after that, Xerxes werth his agen theode swede unwerth, he became very useless to his own kingdom. On hine his agen aldermon Artabatus besirde on Osloch. His own man, his own kind of officer, Artabatus, I guess is how you say this in modern English, betrayed him and killed him. Besyrde on Osloch. Alla, quath Orosius, hu lustbar licetida on tham dagum waren, swa tha sejath, the thas Christendomus widerflitan sind, the us nu after swelchum longian maya swelche tha waren, tha swa mitchell folk on swa lutlan fyrste at thrim folkefelchtum for woorden, that was 910 of Persa anra onwalde budon hira witherwinum, either ye of Scythium, ye of Cracum. Okay, so this is, now we break into the kind of narrator's thoughts on this. Orosius says in this translation, Alla hu lustbar licetida on tham dagum waren. Oh, how wonderful the times were in those days. Swa tha sejath, that is what they say. The thas Christendomus widerflitan sind, that would kind of argue against Christianity. That us nu after swelchum longian maya swelche tha waren. Longian is like to long after here, like to miss. That they would miss like such times. Tha swa mitchell folk on swa lutlan fyrste at thrim folkefelchtum for woorden. That such a great people in such a little time in 3 battles were destroyed for woorden. And then here, this is great. That was 910 So what is we have 9, it literally says 9, 10, 100,000. What is 9, 10, 100,000? I'll give you a second to venture a guess. It's not 1900,000. It's 9 million. That's the number of people that that this guy is saying were killed in these 3 battles. That is against the Scythians, against the Athenians at Marathon, and then against the Spartans at Thermopylae. 9 million. You know, of course. Buton hira witherwinum, and that's not counting their opponents. So just 9 million Persians were killed. You know, more people than were killed in World War I. Easy math. Either ye of Scythium, ye of Cracum, either of the Scythians or of the Greeks. That taknode Leoniþa on his tham nixtani feochte on Persa. Welch monqualm on Crekalonde was mid monifaldum davum, mid thamte he sprekende was to his iferum at his undernie reorde, erhe totham feochte for it. So this is a little confusing, because it's saying here, that taknode Leoniþa, that is what Leonidas kind of demonstrated. In his next battle, does this mean the second battle, that is the one right after Thermopylae that we were told about? Or does this mean like the next one, that is, he's not going to tell us about it, against the Persians? How much of a kind of destruction there was in Greece with many deaths. Mid monifaldum dadum. So does he live it's kind of unclear what Orosius thinks. Orosius might not have known. It doesn't really matter. Here, what's trying to be conveyed is that he's trying to kind of rope Leonidas into agreeing with him that the times were bad. And he kind of makes up this quote here. But he gives it, "Tha he sprekende was to his ferum," when he was speaking to his comrades, at his undernirreorde, at kind of the morning speech, he to tham feokte fore, before he went to that battle. Uton nu what? Uton nu brukan Theseus undermetes, swa tha shulon, the hiura avenivel on hella yefetchan shulon. So that, let us eat this undermetes, this breakfast, swa tha shulon, just as they should, the hiura avenivel on hella yefetchan shulon, that will eat their dinner, avenivel, in hell. So he's saying, let's eat breakfast like men who are going to have dinner in hell. Basically like, hell yeah, we're all going to die. Let's eat breakfast like we're all going to die today. Pretty Leonidas. Thach he swa tha quare, he quath eft other word. Thach each side that way to helle scholden, thach neye triwe each na, gole, that he us ne meie I shildan to beter antidum thonne way nu onsind. Okay. So he gives this kind of like metal, like, we're going to die today. Let's all go to hell. And then Orosius writes in after that. And this is just the Old English translator at this point, making this all up on the spot. Even though he said that, he also said this. And I mean, I know I just said it, but like the Latin is right here. This is not there. I mean, you can see the Latin. If we go back to the previous page, we have the quote. My head might be covering it. I'll put it. I guess I can't really show it without. All right. Hopefully you can see it here. It's just prandete tamquam apud inferos coina turi. So let us eat, just like we are, as if we were going to have dinner in hell. And that's all he says. And then, in Latin it does say, he was then also saying, like, times are bad, let's hope for better times. The Old English translator takes that to say, let me apologize for this kind of sacrilegious thing I just said, and say, thach each side that way to helle schuldon, thach ne triwe each na gore, that he us ne maya shildan to better antidum thonne way nu onsind. Though I said it before that we should all go to hell, I'm not, that is, yeortriwe is like to not trust in. So I do still trust in God, Gore, that he us ne mei shildan to betterantidum thonne way nu onsind, that he is still going to be able to bring us to better times, betterantidum, thonne way nu onsind. Kind of funny. Leoniþa saide that tha tida tha ivle waron. I've been saying tidum. This is tidan. This U is in West Saxon, we expect an A there. So this is a better time, not better times. Beteran tidum. And I wouldn't have noticed it unless, because this is the singular. This is the singular dative weak ending of beteran. Beteran tidan, that is to a better time, not beterum tidum, to better times. Sorry, just need to clarify that real quick. So Leonidas says, I am very hopeful that God will bring us to better times. Leoniþa saide that tha tida tha ivle waron. Leonidas said that those times were evil. Und wilnede that him toar beteran waron, und nu sume men sedjath that tha beteran waron thonne nu sin. Nu hi swa twiwir die sindon, thonne waron either gode, ye tha aron, swa sume men nu sedjath, ye ac thas afteran, swa hi saidon, und narun nadere an thonke. If he thonne soth ne saidon, thonne narun nadere gode, ne tha ne nu. Okay, so Leonidas said that the times were evil, and he wanted better times. And wilde that him toar betran waren. He desired that they were fast approaching, that they were just around the corner. Toar, betran, better times, or a better time. And nu sumemen sedjaf that tha betran waren thonne nu sin. So now some people say sumemen sedjaf that tha betran waren thonne nu sin, that those times, that is the past, were better than they are now. Nu hi swa twi sindon. So Leonidas, according to the Old English translator at least, and Orosius as well, said that those times were bad and he'd hope for better times. The people nowadays say that these times are bad and they wish that they were in the better times. Nu hi swa twi sindon. They're at odds with each other. Now they are at odds. Thonne waren either gode, je tha aran swa sumemen nu sedjaf, je actas afteran swa hi sidon. So thonne waren either gode. Then they were both good. So he's saying if Leonidas said he was hoping for better times, and people now are saying that the old times are better, then they must have both been good, the old times and the new times. Und naron nadre an thonke, and they were not. Neither of them were. So on thonke, it means like in your mind, So the perception. So he's saying people back then thought it was bad. People nowadays think it's bad. Both times were good. It's just naron nadre on thonke. Neither of them were good in perception on thonke. If he thonne soth ne sidon, thonne naron nader gode ne tha ne nu. And if they were wrong, then neither were good. Not then, not now. So this is the kind of the point that he's making. If they were correct, then both times were good. If they were wrong, then neither time were good. But there isn't a difference between them. That's what he's trying to say. Okay. I hope this was entertaining and helpful. Please let me know if you have any kind of requests for texts or anything like that. Let me know what you think about it. And until next time, Fara Thie Sunde.